Welcome to the Ultimate 12-Month Business Blueprint podcast. If you are listening to this, you are at the very beginning of a journey that will completely transform how you look at business, freedom, and your life. Today, we are diving into month one. This is the very first book we selected for our 12-month curriculum because without it, any business you try to build, whether it's e-commerce, Amazon FBA, or a service-based agency, is practically doomed to fail before it even starts. We are talking about setting the concrete foundation of your mindset. Today, we break down the E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber.
Yeah.
Every single year, like over 1 million people in the U.S. alone start a business.
Right. 1 million.
Yeah, 1 million. And by year 5, 800,000 of those businesses are just dead in the water.
It's a pretty devastating reality when you actually look at those raw numbers.
Totally.
And honestly, it gets even worse. Because of the 20% that actually managed to survive those first 5 grueling years, 80% of those will fail in the next 5.
Wow.
So we're looking at a system where, failure isn't just common, it is the statistical default.
Which, I mean, that forces a massive question, right? Why do so many people pour their capital, their energy, their savings, like their very lives, into a business only to fail?
Right.
So we're going on a mission in this deep dive today. Our goal is to fundamentally dismantle that highly romanticized, almost mythological American dream of starting a business.
Yes.
And we want to replace it with a pragmatic, almost scientific framework for success. And we're basing this entirely on excerpts from Michael E. Gerber's seminal text, The E-Myth Revisited.
Which is such a fascinating source. The core thesis we're unpacking today, it's going to challenge a lot of long-held beliefs.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the problem, according to the source material, isn't that small businesses inherently don't work. It's not the economy, it's not the location, it's not even the product.
Right.
The problem is that the people who own them are doing, well, the entirely wrong kind of work.
The wrong work. So for you listening right now, whether you're a current business owner drowning in the day-to-day, or maybe an aspiring entrepreneur mapping out your future.
Or just someone curious about organizational psychology.
Yeah, exactly. Just someone wanting to know why human beings build the structures they do. This deep dive is designed to completely change how you view work itself.
It really is.
But I think we have to start at the absolute beginning, right? At the exact moment a business is born. Because according to the text, this moment is usually based on a massive, fundamental misunderstanding.
Yes. The text identifies this origin point as the entrepreneurial seizure.
The entrepreneurial seizure. I love that term.
It's great, right? And it's treated almost like a psychological infection.
Yeah.
Like, picture a technical worker.
Okay.
This could literally be anyone. A highly skilled carpenter, a brilliant software engineer, a technical writer, or, I don't know, a barber.
Sure.
They're currently working for somebody else, doing the technical work of that specific field, and they are likely very, very good at it. But one day, something shifts.
It's that feeling of sudden clarity, or maybe it's just frustration. You're sitting at your desk or you're standing on the job site and you just think, why am I working for this person?
Exactly. I know as much about this field as they do.
Right. If it weren't for my code or my carpentry, they wouldn't even have a company. Like any idiot can run a business, and I'm currently working for one.
Yeah. And from that precise moment, they are stricken. They're infected with this idea of independence.
The bug.
The bug, yes. The excitement of cutting the cord, of not having a boss, it becomes this constant nagging companion. They just have to start their own business.
Right.
But in the throes of this sudden seizure, they fall victim to what the text calls the fatal assumption.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because on its face, the fatal assumption sounds like total common sense to most people.
It really does.
The assumption is this. If you understand the technical work of a business, you understand a business that does that technical work.
That is the assumption, yes. And it is the most disastrous assumption anyone can possibly make.
But wait, why? I mean, let's say I am the world's absolute best coder. My architecture is flawless, my code is super clean, I can build an app faster and better than anyone in my firm.
Okay.
If I start a software development agency, shouldn't my agency succeed by default because the core product is so good? Shouldn't world-class technical work naturally equal a world-class business?
See, that is the exact trap the technician falls into. They believe that a business is just a place to go to work.
Huh.
So the brilliant coder becomes an agency owner. The carpenter becomes a general contractor. The chef opens a restaurant. They believe that knowing how to write code or cook food eminently qualifies them to run a business that sells code or food. But the text argues that the technical work of a business and a business that does that technical work are two fundamentally different things,
Completely different thing.
entirely different skill sets.
So you're saying the skill of baking isn't the same as the skill of running a bakery?
Not only are they not the same, but knowing the technical work actually becomes their single greatest liability.
Wait, a liability? How can being good at the thing you sell be a liability?
Think about the mechanics of it. If you started a bakery, but you had absolutely no idea how to bake a cake,
Which I don't, by the way.
right, so you would be forced to figure out how to get cakes baked by other people.
Okay, yeah.
You'd be forced to build a system, hire the right talent, manage their output, and focus on the business itself. You'd have to learn how to make the business work.
Because I literally couldn't do the work myself.
Exactly. But because you do know how to bake the cake, the moment an order comes in or a problem arises, what do? You jump into the kitchen and bake it yourself.
Because it's faster. Because, I want it done right.
Exactly. And the moment you do that, you're no longer a business owner. You're an employee in a business you just happen to own.
Wow.
The business that was supposed to free you has now enslaved you.
And this actually brings us to Sarah. The text uses this incredibly vivid, frankly heartbreaking anecdote to illustrate this exact trap.
Oh, the story of Sarah and her shop, all about pies.
Yeah. It is the emotional anchor of the entire first half of the analysis. So Sarah loved baking pies.
Loved it.
As a little girl, her aunt taught her the magic of the process. The specific way to knead the dough, the careful cutting of the apples and cherries, the exact temperature to get that perfect flaky crust.
Her aunt used to tell her, baking pies is not about getting done. It's about baking pies.
Right. It was this meditative, joyful process for her. It was pure love. So naturally, as she gets older, all her friends tell her she's crazy not to open a pie shop because her pies are that good.
Of course they do.
So the entrepreneurial seizure hits. She takes on massive debt, signs a lease, buys the best oak floors, installs these massive ovens, and opens all about pies.
A classic transition from technician to business owner based entirely on that fatal assumption.
Right. And when the author meets her in the text, she's 3 years into this venture, and she tells him point blank, "They have been the longest 3 years of my life."
The author describes her standing in this beautiful shop at like 7 in the morning. The smell of fresh pies is wafting through the air.
Sounds idyllic.
Right, but then she reveals that she's been awake since 3 a.m. She was up at 2 a.m. just to get ready to come in.
Oh, my God.
And she realizes that by the time she preps all the pies for the morning rush, opens the shop, serves the customers, cleans up the massive mess, reconciles the cash register, goes to the bank, orders supplies, and preps for the next day. It's going to be 10 at night.
And then she has to sit at her kitchen table and figure out how to pay the rent because the margins are razor thin.
Yeah. What is the climax of that story, like her breaking point?
She gets so overwhelmed that she literally kicks her massive black oven and just yells, "Damn, damn, damn."
Yeah.
She breaks down crying in front of the author and says, "I hate baking pies. I can't stand the thought of pies. I can't stand the smell of pies. I can't stand the sight of pies."
It's a really tragic image. The sweet aroma of the thing she once loved more than anything in the world is filling the air, and she absolutely despises it.
Right. So if we look at the mechanics of Sarah's failure, her technical knowledge, her ability to bake a magnificent pie, is actually what trapped her. She took the work she loved and turned it into a chore, buried under a dozen other jobs she hates and knows nothing about. She doesn't know accounting. She doesn't know supply chain management.
Or retail marketing.
Right, but she's doing all of it just so she can earn the right to bake a pie.
Precisely. The cycle is almost always the same for the technician who falls for the fatal assumption.
First exhilaration, then terror.
Exhilaration, terror, exhaustion, and finally, despair. The total loss of purpose. But to understand why Sarah is so exhausted, we can't just look at her schedule. We have to look inside her mind.
Right, the psychology.
Exactly. We have to explore the constant, unwinnable psychological war being fought inside every small business owner.
This part of the text really resonated with me because it moves away from just dry business theory and into pure human psychology.
Definitely.
To explain this internal war, the author uses an analogy about dieting, the fat guy and the skinny guy.
It perfectly illustrates the concept that we are not a single, unified entity. We're multiple personalities sharing a steering wheel.
Let's walk through the analogy because it is universally relatable. So, picture yourself sitting on the couch on a Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
You're eating a bag of chips, watching a marathon on TV, feeling pretty sluggish, Suddenly, someone wakes up inside you, the skinny guy,
And the skinny guy is a tyrant.
complete tyrant. He looks around and says, "What are we doing? You're out of shape. We are changing everything right now."
Right.
So, driven by the skinny guy, you throw out all the junk food. You go to the store and buy new running shoes, sweats, a blender for kale smoothies.
You're all in.
All in. You set your alarm for 5 a.m. Monday morning, you run. Tuesday, you run, you weigh yourself, and you've lost a pound.
The skinny guy is absolutely thrilled.
Wednesday, you work out even harder. The skinny guy is completely in control of the organism.
But then comes Thursday morning.
Exactly. Thursday morning, the alarm goes off at 5 a.m. You open your eyes and you hear rain hitting the window. The room is freezing cold.
Oh, no.
And in that moment, you realize somebody else is in your body. The skinny guy is gone. The fat guy is back.
And the fat guy does not want to run in the freezing rain.
No, the fat guy wants to hit, snooze, pull up at the covers, and eventually eat everything in the refrigerator.
The brand new running shoes just sit by the door, completely abandoned.
Right, because we are not one person. We are constantly shifting personalities, fighting for control of our actions.
Now, apply that exact same psychological dynamic to the mind of the small business owner. But instead of two personalities fighting over a diet, there are three distinct personalities fighting for control of the business.
3.
Yes, the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician.
Okay, let's break these 3 down mechanically. How do they operate? What do they want? Let's start with the entrepreneur.
The entrepreneur is the visionary, the dreamer, the catalyst for change. The entrepreneur lives entirely in the future.
So they don't care about today.
Not at all. They don't care about what is happening today. They care about what could happen tomorrow. They crave control, but they use it to construct vast images of what if. They are the grand strategists.
So they're the ones looking at a vacant lot and seeing a skyscraper.
Exactly. But there is a dark side to this personality.
Which is?
To the entrepreneur, the present world is made up of two things: an overabundance of opportunities and dragging feet.
Dragging feet.
Yeah, because they live in the future. Everyone else in the present is just moving way too slowly. People are just problems that get in the way of the dream.
Huh. It sounds like a personality that operates entirely on friction. If the entrepreneur is constantly stepping on the gas and creating chaos, there must be a personality slamming on the brakes.
Yes.
Is that where the management instinct comes in?
That is the manager. If the entrepreneur lives in the future, the manager lives exclusively in the past.
The past.
The manager is the pragmatist. Where the entrepreneur craves change, the manager craves order, predictability, and planning. They want to codify what has already happened so they can control it.
Okay. The text gives a fantastic visual for the manager.
Oh, the hardware store.
Yes. The manager goes to the hardware store, buys 100 little stacking plastic boxes, and systematically stores every single nut, bolt, and screw in its own carefully identified label maker drawer.
Right. They hang tools on the pegboard and literally paint a silhouette of the tool behind it so it always goes back in the exact right spot.
They cling to the status quo.
They do. And the fundamental tension between these two is immense.
I can imagine.
The entrepreneur creates a massive mess inventing new things, and the manager runs around frantically behind them, cleaning it up and trying to put the mess into little gray boxes.
It's like the entrepreneur builds a house, and the instant it's finished, they don't want to live in it. They're already drawing blueprints for the next one.
Yes. And the manager builds a house and wants to live in it forever, maintaining it perfectly.
And while these two are fighting over the future and the past, you have the third personality, the technician.
The technician lives in the present. They are the pure doer. Their entire credo is, if you want it done right, do it yourself.
So they just want to work?
That's all they want. To the technician, things aren't supposed to be dreamed about, and they aren't supposed to be organized. They're supposed to be done.
So they must view the other two personalities as massive annoyances.
They absolutely do. The entrepreneur is always throwing a monkey wrench into the technician's day with some great new idea that interrupts the actual work.
Right.
And to the technician, the manager is just a meddler, a bureaucrat who tries to organize the work instead of just doing it.
Yeah. To the technician, thinking is unproductive unless it's thinking about the literal task directly in front of them.
Exactly. Now, if we were perfectly balanced human beings, we'd be 33% entrepreneur, 33% manager, and 33% technician.
We'd have an incredibly competent internal ecosystem.
Right. The visionary would plan the future, the manager would organize the foundation to support it, and the technician would execute the daily work.
But the text makes it clear that this balance almost never exists, does it?
Not at all. The typical small business owner is grossly imbalanced.
How bad is it?
The text estimates that the average owner is roughly 10% entrepreneur, 20% manager, and a massive 70% technician.
70%. So when that 70% technician takes the wheel, what does that actually look like on the ground? What is the day-to-day reality?
It means you have a constant state of internal warfare where the present always wins.
Always wins.
The entrepreneur wakes up with a grand vision for expansion. The manager looks at the vision, sees the lack of structure, and screams, "Oh no, that's chaos, we can't do that."
And they just lock horns.
And while the visionary and the organizer are paralyzed fighting each other, the technician just quietly seizes control, puts their head down, and goes to work baking the pies or writing the code.
They ignore the future, they ignore the organization, and they just grind.
Yep. And because this internal ratio is so heavily skewed toward the technician, the external business reflects that imbalance.
Right. The business itself goes through 3 very predictable and often fatal phases of growth.
Yes. The business is a direct reflection of the owner's psychology. Let's examine how this 70% technician ratio dictates the first phase, infancy.
Infancy is the honeymoon phase, right? You've just quit your job, the boss is dead, you are free.
You open the doors and you do everything yourself.
Everything. You are the master juggler. You're the salesperson, the janitor, the bookkeeper, and the primary producer.
It feels exhilarating at first, but the mechanics of infancy hold the seeds of its own destruction.
How so?
Because you are the only one doing the work. The business's capacity to produce is strictly limited by your personal physical energy and hours in a day.
Right. You can only bake so many pies.
Exactly. As the business grows, it demands more than you can possibly give.
The 14-hour days turn into 16-hour days.
And suddenly, the honeymoon ends. The realization hits the owner like a ton of bricks. You don't own a business, you own a job.
A terrible job.
And it is the worst job in the world because you have created a lunatic boss yourself who expects you to work 80 hours a week for a fraction of what you used to make.
This sheer physical exhaustion forces the owner into the second phase of growth, adolescence.
Yes.
The text describes adolescence as the moment you finally decide to get help. You realize you can't do it all, so you hire your first employee. The text uses a generic name for this employee, Harry.
Hiring Harry should be a moment of triumph. It represents growth. But remember the internal ratio. The owner is still 70% technician.
Right.
And a technician doesn't know how to delegate.
Okay, this is a crucial distinction. I want to spend a moment here. What is the mechanical difference between what a manager does, delegation, and what the technician does in this phase?
Delegation requires structure. A manager who delegates spends time creating a system. They define the standard of the work, they create a feedback loop to monitor the work, and they train the employee on how to achieve that specific standard.
So they own the process.
The manager accepts responsibility for the process. The technician, on the other hand, doesn't want to build a process. They hate managing.
They just want someone to take the annoying tasks off their plate.
Exactly. So they can get back to what they actually like doing, the technical work.
So they don't delegate, they abdicate.
Precisely. Abdication is management by dumping.
Management by dumping, I like that.
The technician owner hires Harry, points to a massive pile of unorganized work, and essentially says, "I'm drowning, just handle this." And then the owner runs away back to their workbench.
But what is Harry's psychology? I mean, Harry's probably a technician too, right?
Exactly. Harry needs direction. He needs to know the standard of work, where the business is going, why he's doing what he's doing.
But the owner isn't a manager, so they don't give Harry any of that context or structure.
So the inevitable happens. Mistakes start piling up. Customers, who are used to the owner's obsessive level of quality, start complaining. Things fall through the cracks.
Because Harry is doing his best, but he's operating in a total vacuum.
And how does the technician owner react to this? They don't look at the lack of systems. They look at Harry and think, "See, nobody cares like I do. If you want it done right, you have to do it yourself."
So the owner jumps back in, pushes Harry aside, and starts doing Harry's work again.
Yes.
They literally sabotage their own growth because they refuse to manage. Which brings us to the most dangerous transition in the life cycle of a business, the moment the business pushes beyond the owner's comfort zone.
The comfort zone is the boundary of what the owner can personally, physically control themselves.
Okay.
When a business enters adolescence and grows beyond that boundary, Chaos ensues.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The owner's reaction to this chaos is incredibly counterintuitive. When the business outgrows their ability to control it, what do? Do they level up? Do they take management courses? No. The text says they intentionally shrink the business. They get small again.
It is a profound psychological defense mechanism. The chaos of adolescence triggers intense anxiety. The owner feels like they are losing their grip.
So to get control back, they retreat.
They retreat to what felt safe. They fire people. They drop inventory. They might even move into a smaller facility. They purposefully reverse course back to infancy.
The text paints this really vivid picture of the owner wrapping up their payables in a plastic bag, putting a single machine in the middle of an empty room, putting the phone next to it, and deciding, it's just going to be me again. Keep it simple.
Because it's comfortable. It's the only reality the technician knows how to master. But as the text points out, this is an implosion. It is fatal.
Why is it fatal, though? Why can't a business just stay a comfortable one-person shop forever?
Because a business is a dynamic entity. You cannot take a complex, growing organism and forcibly stunt its growth without causing permanent structural damage.
Right, because the world around it doesn't start.
Exactly. The market is moving, competitors are moving, inflation is moving. If you intentionally shrink, the business inevitably atrophies. It becomes artificially constrained by the owner's personal limitations.
Wow.
The text actually compares it to the play Waiting for Godot. The owner sits in this shrunken, stunted business, working day after day, waiting for some mythical relief or success that is never going to arrive, because they've built a prison tailored exactly to their own limitations.
Man, that is bleak. Okay, so we've mapped out the trap. Working harder as a technician leads to exhaustion in infancy, abdicating leads to chaos in adolescence, and shrinking leads to a slow death.
Yes.
What is the alternative? How do the 5% of businesses that actually survive, grow, and reach maturity operate? What are they doing differently?
The alternative requires a fundamental, radical paradigm shift in how you view the concept of a business.
Okay.
It requires moving away from the entrepreneurial myth entirely and embracing what the text calls the turnkey revolution.
The turnkey revolution. Okay, to really grasp this, the author points to one of the most famous and perhaps misunderstood business stories in history, Ray Kroc and the founding of the McDonald's empire.
It is a perfect historical case study.
Yeah.
The year is 1952. Ray Kroc is a 52-year-old salesman selling milkshake machines.
Right.
He travels to San Bernardino, California to visit a hamburger stand owned by two brothers, Mac and Dick McDonald.
Now, if a typical technician walked into that incredibly successful hamburger stand, they would taste the food, look at the lines of customers, and think, wow, this is a great hamburger. The secret is the meat. I should learn how to cook this hamburger and sell it.
Right, they focus entirely on the commodity.
But that is not what Ray Kroc saw.
Not at all. Ray Kroc didn't look at the hamburger as the product. He looked at the business as the product.
Okay, wait. Explain that.
He looked past the grill and saw a machine, a perfectly engineered, highly efficient system that produced exactly the same result every single time, regardless of who was flipping the burgers.
He saw that the brothers had applied the thinking behind the Industrial Revolution, like standardization, interchangeable parts, mass production, not to manufacturing steel, but to the process of business development itself.
Yes. Ray Kroc realized that the value wasn't in the burger. The value was in the system that delivered the burger. He realized he needed to work on the business, not in it.
That is the absolute mantra of this entire deep dive. Work on your business, not in it.
And out of that realization came the concept of the business format franchise, the franchise prototype.
And we can't argue with the data there.
No, you can't. Where 80% of independent small businesses fail within the first 5 years, business format franchises have a wildly different trajectory.
What are the numbers?
Studies cited in the tech show franchises have a 95% success rate over a 1-year period.
95% success versus 80% failure. That is a staggering delta. And it's because the system runs the business and the people run the system.
Exactly. The business works predictably, effortlessly, and profitably. It operates like a piece of finely tuned software.
What's fascinating here is, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this turnkey approach forces us to rethink everything about how a company is built, especially how we think about human capital.
Oh, absolutely.
And this brings us to one of the most counterintuitive, almost controversial rules in the entire text, the rule of ordinary people.
Yes, this is a big one.
I want to spend significant time on this because when I first read it, every instinct in my body wanted to fight it.
It goes against everything we're taught.
It really does. The rule states that your business model must be designed so that it can be operated by people with the lowest possible level of skill necessary to complete the task.
Lowest possible skill.
My immediate reaction, and I think the reaction of most listeners, is, wait, that sounds like a race to the bottom. Shouldn't we want to hire the absolute best, the most highly skilled, brilliant experts to run our business? Doesn't top talent equal a top company?
It is a completely natural reaction. We are conditioned to believe that we need to hire rock stars or ninjas.
Right.
But what's fascinating here is why relying on experts is actually a massive structural trap for a small business.
Okay, let's debate this. If I am running a high-end architectural firm or a specialized software development company, I can't just hire unskilled labor off the street. The product will fail. How does this rule apply outside of, like, a fast food environment?
The key phrase is lowest possible level of skill necessary to complete the task. If the task requires a licensed architect, you hire an architect.
Okay.
But you do not hire the most brilliant, unpredictable maverick architect in the state.
How can not?
Because if your business model depends on the unique genius of highly skilled experts, it becomes people-dependent, not system-dependent.
Okay, I see. Because if that maverick architect leaves, all the intellectual property, the quality, and the client trust leaves with them.
Exactly. You're held hostage by your own employees.
Yeah.
Furthermore, experts are expensive. They demand premium salaries, which drives up your overhead, which drives up the price you have to charge your customer, making you less competitive.
Right.
But more importantly, the blessing of ordinary people is that they force you to be a better owner.
How does hiring an ordinary person make me better?
Because if you can't rely on a brilliant employee to just figure it out when things go wrong, it forces you to build a flawless system. It forces you to innovate, to ask the difficult questions about how to produce extraordinary results using average talent.
It's like building a video game. If the employee is the player, an expert player might be able to beat a broken, buggy game just through sheer skill and reflex.
That's a great analogy.
But an ordinary player will just get frustrated and fail. The rule of ordinary people forces the owner to become a master programmer. You have to write a flawless physics engine for the business so that when the ordinary employee pushes the jump button, gravity works exactly the same way every single time without fail.
That is perfect. You build a system that acts as a tool for the ordinary person to use, amplifying their capabilities. The system becomes the expert, not the person.
Wow.
And when the system is the expert, you can scale infinitely.
So the obvious next question is, if I accept this paradigm, how do I actually build this flawless, people-proof system?
Well, the text introduces an engine for this, a continuous three-step cycle called the business development process.
Okay, what are the 3 steps?
The 3 steps are innovation, quantification, and orchestration.
This is the practical machinery of working on your business.
Yes, exactly.
Let's explore the mechanisms of this engine. Step 1, innovation. What does innovation actually look like in this context? Because my mind immediately goes to, I don't know, inventing a new microchip or a disruptive new app.
Innovation is very often confused with creativity. But as the economist Theodore Levitt pointed out, creativity thinks up new things. Innovation does new things.
Doing new things.
Right. In the context of the franchise prototype, innovation isn't about inventing a new product. It is about innovating the process by which the business interacts with the customer.
So it's not what you sell, it's how you sell it, how you package it, how you deliver it.
Precisely.
The text gives some incredibly specific micro examples of process innovation that I found fascinating. Like simply training a salesperson to touch a customer softly on the elbow or arm when asking them a question.
Yes.
Studies in the text showed it dramatically increases the rate of a positive response.
Or changing the initial greeting at the door of a retail shop. Instead of the standard, easily dismissed, "Can I help you?" Changing it to, "Hi, have you been in here before?"
Which is brilliant mechanically because it completely changes the trajectory of the conversation.
Oh.
If they say yes, you say, great, welcome back. What were you looking at last time? If they say no, you say, wonderful, let me give you a quick tour of how the store is laid out. It traps them in a positive interaction.
But innovation alone, no matter how clever, is entirely useless without step 2 of the engine, quantification.
Right, because if you innovate, say you implement the elbow touch, but you don't measure the impact, how do you know if it actually worked?
You don't.
Maybe your sales went up because of the weather or a competitor closed down. Without quantification, you're just guessing.
Precisely. Quantification is the scientific method applied to business. It is about the numbers. The text provides a fantastic concrete example of this.
Go with suits.
Yes, a retail store decides to innovate by changing the color of the suits their salespeople wear. They switch them from brown suits to navy blue suits.
Okay, so they put everyone in blue suits. How do they quantify that?
They track absolutely everything. They measure how many people walk through the door, literally counting the door swings before the change. They measure the average unit value of a sale, the conversion rate, the time spent in store, all while the salespeople are in brown suits.
Okay.
Then they put the exact same salespeople in the blue suits and measure all those metrics again.
And the results?
The blue suits outsell the brown suits, increasing overall sales by 16%.
16%, just by changing a color. And here is the crucial part that ties back to the turnkey philosophy. It didn't matter who was wearing the suit.
Exactly.
The system, the color of the suit, produced the result, not the individual salesperson's charisma or skill. Which leads perfectly into step 3, orchestration.
Orchestration is perhaps the most difficult concept for the technician to accept. Orchestration is the complete elimination of discretion at the operating level of your business.
Eliminating discretion. When I read that, it sounded incredibly authoritarian. It sounds like turning humans into robots. Why would any employee want to work in an environment where they have zero discretion over how they do their job?
To understand why it's necessary, we have to look at the psychology of both the employee and the customer. If we connect this to the bigger picture, discretion is the enemy of order, standardization, and quality. Let's look at the customer first. Think about the burnt child syndrome mentioned in the text.
Right, the psychological concept where if a child is alternatively punished and rewarded for the exact same behavior, they become incredibly anxious and neurotic because they never know what to expect from their environment.
The exact same psychology applies to your customers. If they come into your shop and get an amazing, highly personalized experience on Tuesday, but they come back on Thursday and a different employee exercises their discretion and does things entirely differently, resulting in a mediocre experience, you've burnt the customer.
They don't know what to expect anymore.
And the burnt customer doesn't complain, they just leave and never come back.
Because humans crave certainty.
Yes. And employees crave certainty too.
Yeah.
An environment with zero discretion doesn't mean it's oppressive. It means it's clear.
The expectations are mathematically precise.
Exactly. The employee never has to wonder if they're doing a good job. The system tells them. Discretion creates anxiety because the rules are constantly shifting. Orchestration creates safety.
Ray Kroc understood this on a molecular level. The text says, if you haven't orchestrated it, you don't own it. If you don't own it, you can't depend on it. Orchestration means doing what works exactly the same way every single time until it statistically stops working.
And when it stops working, the cycle begins again.
Right. You innovate a new solution, quantify it, and orchestrate it. It is a dynamic, continuous engine of improvement.
So we have the engine: innovation, quantification, orchestration. But an engine is just a piece of machinery. It is useless if you don't know where you are driving the vehicle. You have to aim it.
You need a destination.
And the text argues that the aiming process cannot start with financial goals. It has to start with something deeply, uncomfortably personal: the owner's actual life.
This is the strategy foundation, and it begins with what the author calls your primary aim.
This exercise is often a profound wake-up call for business owners.
It gave me chills reading it. The author asks you to imagine a tape recording playing at your funeral. The room is filled with everyone who matters to you: your family, your friends, your colleagues.
What do you want that tape to say about you?
Exactly. How do you want to be remembered? What kind of life do you want to have lived? Because the harsh, inescapable truth is your business is not your life.
That is a critical distinction that the technician completely misses. Your business and your life are two separate, distinct entities.
Right.
The primary purpose of your business is not to consume your life or to be your identity. It is to serve as a vehicle to help you achieve your primary aim.
So once you know your primary aim, let's say it's to have the freedom to travel or to spend uninterrupted time with your kids or to fund a specific charity, you then define your strategic objective.
Your strategic objective is a clear, metric-driven statement of what your business has to ultimately do for you to achieve that primary aim. It is the vision of the finished product.
And the text makes a stunning point here about the life cycle of a company. The ultimate goal of building a business is not to work in it forever. The goal is to finish it.
Yes, finish it.
To build a system so flawless, so perfectly orchestrated and turnkey that it runs completely without you, and then you sell it, you get paid for it.
Yes, the standard for the strategic objective is often financial. Will this business eventually sell for 5 times earnings?
Yeah.
10 times earnings. But to even begin that journey, the idea must meet the standard of being an opportunity worth pursuing.
What defines an opportunity worth pursuing mechanically?
It means looking objectively at the market. Does this business alleviate a specific frustration experienced by a large enough group of consumers to make it mathematically worth your while to build a system?
So if the market is too small or the frustration isn't acute enough, it doesn't matter how good your pies are.
If it doesn't meet that standard, walk away. Don't waste your life. But if it is an opportunity worth pursuing, you have to build the physical structure of the company.
Which brings us to your organizational strategy. And to explain how to do this correctly, the text gives us the story of 2 partners, Jack and Murray.
Jack and Murray's story is the perfect contrast to how most small businesses start. Usually 2 partners just dive in, shake hands, and start doing the work.
Right. Jack likes making the product, so he does production. Murray is outgoing, so he does sales.
Yeah.
They don't plan, they just react.
The typical technician trap. They run as fast as they can until they get overwhelmed. They hire people without a system, and the business collapses into a chaotic, adolescent mess.
But the text shows us a radically different way for Jack and Murray to operate. They don't just start working. They sit down and build an organization chart first. They map out the entire company as it will look when it's totally finished.
Which is such a weird thing to do when it's just 2 people.
Exactly. They map out the president, the VP of marketing, the VP of operations, the sales managers, the production managers, all the way down to the lowest level tactical workers.
Even though Jack and Murray are the only 2 employees in the entire company right now.
This is the genius part. They write their names in every single box on that chart. So Jack's name is in the VP of Operations box, but his name is also in the bottom-level production worker box. Murray's name is in VP of Marketing and also in the bottom-level salesperson box.
And here is where the mechanics of the turnkey revolution really take over. Instead of writing vague, generic job descriptions for these roles, they write what the text calls position contracts for every single box on the chart.
Let's dig into that. What does a position contract actually look like in practice? How is it different from a job description?
Well, a job description usually just lists tasks. Make cold calls, update the CRM. A position contract is a binding agreement.
Okay.
It summarizes the specific results to be achieved, the exact work to be done to achieve those results, and the quantifiable standards by which that work will be evaluated. It defines the physics engine of that specific role.
So what does Murray do on day 1? He goes to work as a salesperson at the bottom of the chart. But he isn't just selling to make a buck. He is working on the position.
Right.
He spends a month figuring out the perfect sales script. He documents exactly how many calls it takes to get a meeting. He writes down the exact rebuttals for every objection. He quantifies it, orchestrates it, and turns it into a step-by-step operations manual. He perfects the system for that specific box on the org chart.
And then, once the system is flawless, he hires an ordinary person, hands them the manual, trains them on the system, and replaces himself at the bottom of the chart.
He steps out of the box. And by replacing himself, he moves up to the sales manager role. And he does the exact same thing there. He creates a management system, how to check the salesperson's call logs, how to run a weekly meeting, orchestrates it into a manual, and replaces himself again.
Jack does the exact same thing on the operations side. They build the business from the bottom up, meticulously documenting every process, replacing themselves with ordinary people using extraordinary systems, until they are finally standing at the top of the org chart, completely free from the tactical work.
It's brilliant. It's like building a massive machine layer by layer and slowly stepping out of it while it keeps running.
It's exactly like that.
But as the owner moves up this org chart, they can't just abandon the people they've hired. They have to install 3 distinct strategies to make the whole thing work: management, people, and marketing. Let's look at the management strategy first.
The key takeaway here, and it's a relief for many owners, is that you don't need brilliant, highly educated, expensive professional managers with MBAs.
Thank goodness.
What you need is a management system. Your managers don't manage people, they manage the system.
The text uses a beautiful example of a resort hotel to illustrate this. The author stays at this hotel in the woods, and everything is immaculate.
Oh, the matchbooks.
The matchbooks are always placed exactly the same way in the center of the ashtray. The fire in the lobby is built perfectly every time. The coffee is always fresh. It feels magical, like the staff are reading his mind. But when he talks to the young manager, he realizes it isn't magic at all. It's checklists.
Yes. The system produces the results. The people merely manage the system. The manager's job is simply to ensure that the physical checklists are being followed to the letter, that the orchestrated standards of the position contract are being met.
So it takes the emotion out of it.
It removes the need for complex, highly fraught interpersonal management. You aren't judging the employee's character. You are simply evaluating their adherence to the system.
Which naturally brings up the question every business owner asks, and this leads directly into the people strategy. Every owner I know eventually asks, how do I get my people to do what I want? How do I get them to care as much as I do?
And the text gives a very blunt, unambiguous answer. You can't.
You can't. You cannot force someone to care. You cannot force someone to do a good job. So what do you do? Do you just accept mediocrity?
No. You have to create an environment where doing the work right is more important to the employee than not doing it right. You have to create what the text calls a game worth playing.
This goes back to that young hotel manager. He tells the author that his boss taught him something profound about the nature of work. The boss told him, the work we do is a reflection of who we are. If we're sloppy at it, it's because we're sloppy inside. The most menial work can be a piece of art when done by an artist.
It frames the business as a dojo, a martial arts practice hall.
I love this metaphor. A dojo. Let's explore the psychology of this. Why would an employee earning near minimum wage care about treating the business like a dojo?
Because clarity of purpose is incredibly rare in the modern world. In a true dojo, you don't go just to punch and kick. You go to practice being the best possible version of yourself.
Right.
The true combat isn't against a physical opponent, it's against yourself. It's a fight against your own limitations, your own laziness, your own lack of discipline. The owner's job is to frame the work of the business, even if it's sweeping floors or placing matchbooks in an ashtray, as a daily practice of personal excellence.
The employee isn't just cleaning a floor. They are practicing discipline, attention to detail, and integrity. They are mastering themselves through the medium of the work.
It gives the work profound meaning. And meaning is what people are starving for. If you can provide a game worth playing, a game with clear rules, objective standards, and a philosophy of excellence, ordinary people will do extraordinary things because they buy into the game.
But to get them to buy in, you, as the owner, have to take the game seriously yourself.
Absolutely. You can't fake a dojo.
And while you are communicating these internal values to your employees, you must also be communicating outwardly to your customers. Which brings us to the marketing strategy.
Here is where the text forces us to look at the harsh, unvarnished psychographic reality of the consumer.
The irrational customer.
Yes. We like to think our customers make logical, spreadsheet-driven decisions. They don't. The author asks us to visualize the customer standing in front of us.
Okay.
They look neutral, but sticking out of their forehead is an invisible, highly sensitive antenna. And at the end of that antenna is a sensor, beeping wildly, absorbing every single microstimulus in your business.
The colors on your website, the shapes of your logo, the smell of your store, the exact tone of voice your receptionist uses.
And that sensor is connected directly to the customer's unconscious mind. The text makes a crucial point. The customer doesn't actually know what they want.
They don't.
They don't have a logical checklist. They make purchasing decisions instantaneously, based entirely on unconscious perceptions and emotional needs.
Right. They aren't buying the physical commodity. They are buying feelings. They're buying the alleviation of an unconscious anxiety. The example of the two men in suits perfectly illustrates this.
Oh, this is a great example.
Picture a salesman in a bright, loud orange suit trying to sell you a complex, high-stakes financial product. Regardless of his credentials, you wouldn't trust him. Your unconscious mind would reject him instantly.
Instantly.
But put that exact same man with the exact same product and the exact same pitch in a sharp, conservative navy blue suit, and suddenly you trust him with your life savings.
Because the blue suit satisfies the unconscious psychographic expectation of what a trustworthy, competent financial advisor looks like. The reality of the product didn't change at all, only the perception did.
So the famous age-old business adage, find a need and fill it, is actually structurally wrong.
It should be, find a perceived need and fill it. If the customer doesn't perceive that they need it, They don't need it, regardless of the objective facts you try to present them.
Yeah.
Your marketing strategy must be aimed entirely at the demographics, who the customer mathematically is, and the psychographics, why they buy, what their unconscious fears, desires, and biases are. You must market purely to their perceptions.
Okay, so we've covered the management checklists, the dojo culture for the people, the psychographic antenna of the marketing. We have all these high-level strategies. How does this all physically manifest in the day-to-day operations of the business? How do we actually build the machine?
This is the final piece of the puzzle, your system strategy, the physical glue that holds the entire franchise prototype together.
The text categorizes systems into 3 integrated types, right? Hard systems, soft systems, and information systems. They must all work together perfectly. Let's start with hard systems. These are the physical things, the inanimate objects, the architecture, the layout of your business.
The author gives a very practical and slightly amusing example from his own consulting company, the Prevent a Smudge system.
This perfectly illustrates how a physical object solves a management problem. So the author's company used whiteboards extensively in their conference rooms, but they had a persistent problem. People would constantly lean against the whiteboards during meetings and smudge the writing.
It was annoying and looked unprofessional.
So how do you fix it? A technician would just get mad and yell at people. A manager would write a memo, but they innovated a hard system instead.
They didn't try to manage the human behavior with words. They placed a small, beautifully lettered sign at eye level that politely said, "Please do not lean against the whiteboard."
But more importantly,
They placed a physical barrier, a designated chair or a large potted plant directly in front of the board, physically blocking people from casually leaning on it.
the physical system solved the human problem automatically, without requiring any management intervention or conflict. That's a hard system. Then you have soft systems. These govern human actions, ideas, and interactions. The primary example here is the PowerPoint selling system.
A well-orchestrated selling system is the ultimate soft system. The text notes a well-known industry statistic. 80% of sales are produced by 20% of salespeople.
Why is that?
The technician assumes it's because the 20% are just naturally gifted rock stars. But the reality is that the top 20% are using a system, even if they developed it unconsciously, and the bottom 80% are just winging it, using their discretion.
So you extract the system from the 20% and you orchestrate it. You break the entire sales process down into specific quantifiable scripts and benchmarks. The appointment presentation, the needs analysis, the solutions presentation.
And you script exactly what to say at every step. You don't leave it to chance. "Hi, Mr. Jackson. Have you seen the remarkable new things being done to control money these days?"
You follow up with a highly specific positioning statement. We are money controlling specialists. You are integrating structure, what you say, with substance, how you say it.
And when you put a well-orchestrated soft system into the hands of ordinary people, the results are staggering. The text mentions companies seeing 300%, even 500% increases in revenue simply by eliminating discretion and making everyone use the proven script.
You elevate the ordinary person to perform like the top 20%.
But to know if your physical hard systems and your scripted soft systems are actually working, you need the third type, information systems.
The data. Without data, you are throwing a dart while wearing a blindfold in a dark room.
Exactly. Information systems track the interactions between the hard and soft systems. How many outbound calls were made today? How many of those calls led to an appointment presentation? How many needs analyses were completed?
What is the exact conversion rate at each benchmark?
What is the mathematically precise cost of acquiring one single customer?
You measure everything. And when you integrate all 3, when the physical environment of the hard system, the scripted human interactions of the soft system, and the ruthless data tracking of the information system all work together seamlessly, you reach the pinnacle of the business. You reach what the text calls the PowerPoint.
The PowerPoint is the moment where the business transcends being a collection of tasks and becomes a fully integrated living organism. It is where your management system and your business development process intersect perfectly.
And what is the ultimate result of reaching that PowerPoint? What does the customer experience?
It allows your business to consistently, flawlessly deliver a promise to the customer that no competitor would ever dare make. Because your competitors are relying on technicians and discretion. They don't have the systems in place to guarantee that promise every single time. You do.
Which brings us full circle. Let's recap this incredible paradigm-shifting journey. We started by shedding the entrepreneurial myth. The fatal assumption that being a great coder or a great pie baker means you are qualified to run a business that sells code or pies.
Right? We recognize the exhausting three-way war in our heads between the future-obsessed entrepreneur, the past-obsessed manager, and the present-obsessed technician.
We saw exactly how staying stuck as a technician leads to physical exhaustion in infancy, management by abdication in adolescence, and ultimately the tragic implosion of the business.
And the solution to all of that suffering was to adopt the turnkey revolution, to embrace the franchise prototype.
To fundamentally shift your mindset to work on the business, not in it. To build a flawless system operated by ordinary people, driven by a continuous engine of innovation, quantification, and orchestration.
To clearly define your personal primary aim and build an organizational strategy from the bottom up.
To manage systems instead of managing people. To create a dojo that gives your employees' work profound meaning, and to market to the unconscious, irrational psychographics of your customer, using deeply integrated hard, soft, and information systems.
You are building a machine that serves your life, rather than being enslaved by a chaotic job you created for yourself.
It is a profound shift in perspective. And to leave you with a final philosophical thought, the author quotes the existential psychologist Rollo May in a concluding letter to Sarah.
May stated that meaning is the product of caring.
In our modern, fast-paced world, we are a society desperately searching for meaning, for purpose, for connection, but we often forget to truly care about the ordinary things, the day-to-day actions, the sweeping of the floors.
So what does this all mean for the listener?
Right, why should they care?
It means that a small business isn't just a place to manufacture a commodity or generate cash flow. When built with intention and systems, a small business is a mirror. It is a practice hall. It is a profound metaphor for personal transformation and freedom.
I love that.
The exact discipline required to orchestrate a business, to align your primary aim with your daily actions, to overcome the chaos of the technician, is the exact same discipline required to mold and create yourself. As Rollo May said, freedom is not gained in a single bound. It must be achieved each day. By mastering the systems of your business, you are, in fact, mastering yourself.
That is incredibly powerful. A business is a mechanism for personal freedom. So, for you listening, here's the call to action. Take a step back today. Look at the chaos you might be swimming in.
Stop working in your business.
Exactly. Stop being consumed by the tactical emergencies of the present moment and start working on it. Take that messy, murky reality you're living in and start building a system that turns the chaos into something clear, purposeful, and profoundly yours.